The Scandalous Legacy of Evan Mecham. Evan Mecham, the 17th governor of Arizona, remains one of the most controversial political figures in U.S. history. Serving as governor from 1987 to 1988, his term was marked by scandals, legal battles, and divisive rhetoric. Mecham's life, both personal and political, offers a fascinating lens into a man whose actions polarized a state and the nation. Here are 10 shocking and scandalous facts about Evan Mecham that delve into his childhood, governorship, and controversies. Number 1. Early life, military service, and family commitments. Evan Mecham was born on May 12, 1924, in Duchesne, Utah, into a devout Mormon family as the youngest of 5 boys. His parents, Ephraim and Clara Mecham, instilled in their children a strong work ethic and religious devotion. The family lived modestly, with Evan growing up on a small farm in the rural town of Altamont. Despite the challenges of the Great Depression, he excelled academically, graduating as salutatorian of Altamont High School in 1942. His aptitude for learning and leadership earned him a brief stint at Utah State Agricultural College, where he studied engineering before the onset of World War II redirected his ambitions. In January 1943, Mecham enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps, aspiring to become a fighter pilot. He trained rigorously and eventually flew the iconic P-51 Mustang in combat missions over Europe. On March 7, 1945, his aircraft was shot down by enemy fire. Captured by German forces, he endured 22 days as a prisoner of war until being liberated shortly before the war's end. Mecham was awarded the Air Medal and Purple Heart for his service and courage. Upon returning to Utah, he married Florence Lambert in May 1945. Together, they built a large and loving family, raising 7 children: Suzanne, Dennis, Christine, Eric, Teresa, Kyle, and Lance. Deeply involved in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mecham served as a bishop from 1957 to 1961. His faith played a pivotal role in his life, influencing his personal and political decisions. Mecham often credited his resilience and success to his spiritual convictions, which he viewed as guiding principles throughout his career. Number 2. Controversial cancellation of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In 1987, shortly after taking office as Arizona governor, Mecham sparked outrage by rescinding the state's observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. His predecessor, Governor Bruce Babbitt, had established the holiday through an executive order. Mecham argued that the holiday was illegitimate, as it bypassed legislative approval, and expressed concerns about its financial implications for the state. The decision provoked widespread protests and boycotts, tarnishing Arizona's national reputation. Civil rights organizations, celebrities, and politicians condemned the move, with Coretta Scott King calling it an affront to the legacy of my husband. The NFL relocated the 1993 Super Bowl from Arizona to Pasadena, California, costing the state an estimated $150 million in revenue. This backlash highlighted existing racial tensions in Arizona and deeply undermined Mecham's administration. Number 3. Racially insensitive remarks stir public outrage. Mecham's tenure as governor was marred by a series of racially insensitive comments that amplified public disapproval. One of the most notorious incidents occurred when he defended the use of a racial slur, arguing that African American children were comfortable with the term because they allegedly used it among themselves. Mecham claimed he was merely addressing linguistic nuances, but his remarks were widely condemned as offensive and out of touch. These statements drew sharp criticism from civil rights organizations, including the NAACP, which accused Mecham of perpetuating harmful stereotypes. Editorials in major newspapers, such as the New York Times and the Washington Post, lambasted his rhetoric, with one op-ed describing him as a governor incapable of understanding the basic tenets of racial equality. The controversy deepened Mecham's isolation from minority communities and civil rights advocates. It also fueled broader discussions about systemic racism in Arizona, making Mecham a symbol of the challenges minority groups faced in gaining political and social recognition during the 1980s. Number 4. Financial scandal, concealment of a $350,000 campaign loan. In January 1988, Evan Mecham became the subject of a state grand jury indictment for concealing a $350,000 campaign loan from real estate developer Barry Wolfson. This loan, used during Mecham's 1986 gubernatorial campaign, was not disclosed in accordance with campaign finance laws. Critics viewed this as a deliberate attempt to obscure the source of his campaign funds, raising serious ethical and legal questions. The indictment alleged that Mecham and his campaign team failed to report the loan as required by state law. This violation became a focal point of his impeachment proceedings, with legislators arguing that it undermined public trust in his administration. Mecham vehemently denied any wrongdoing, claiming the omission was an administrative oversight. Although he was eventually acquitted of criminal charges related to the loan, the damage to his reputation was irreversible. The scandal eroded public confidence in his leadership and contributed significantly to his political downfall. Number 5. Misuse of government funds, the $80,000 protocol fund loan. Mecham faced additional scrutiny for misappropriating $80,000 from the governor's protocol fund to prop up his struggling auto dealership, Mecham Pontiac. The protocol fund was intended for official state functions, not personal financial rescue operations. This misuse of state resources was one of the impeachment charges against Mecham. Critics argued that it demonstrated a blatant disregard for ethical standards and fiscal responsibility. The scandal underscored Mecham's questionable judgment and fueled calls for his resignation. His defense, that the funds were temporarily borrowed and would be repaid, did little to mitigate the damage to his reputation. Number 6. Obstruction of justice, interference in a death threat investigation. Mecham was also accused of obstructing justice by interfering in an investigation involving a death threat made by a member of his staff. Allegations suggested that Mecham sought to protect the individual rather than allow the legal process to unfold transparently. This charge, coupled with the financial scandals, painted a troubling picture of Mecham's leadership. Critics saw it as evidence of his willingness to prioritize loyalty to associates over the rule of law. The allegation became a key factor in the impeachment process and added to the perception of an administration riddled with impropriety. Number 7. Impeachment and removal from office. On February 5, 1988, the Arizona House of Representatives voted 46-14 to impeach Mecham, citing obstruction of justice, misuse of funds, and concealment of campaign loans. The Arizona Senate subsequently convicted him, resulting in his removal from office on April 4, 1988. Mecham made history as the first U.S. governor to simultaneously face a recall effort, impeachment proceedings, and criminal indictment. His downfall marked a dramatic and ignominious end to his short-lived governorship, serving as a cautionary tale about ethical lapses in public office. Number 8. Attempted political comeback and subsequent electoral defeats. Undeterred by his removal, Mecham pursued a political comeback, attending the 1988 Republican National Convention as a delegate. In 1990, he unsuccessfully ran for governor again and later entered the 1992 U.S. Senate race as an independent, opposing John McCain. Mecham garnered 10.52% of the vote, a significant but insufficient showing. These defeats underscored his diminished influence and the lasting impact of his controversial tenure. Despite his efforts, Mecham remained a polarizing figure, unable to rebuild the trust lost during his governorship. Number 9. Allegations of divine right to govern. Throughout his tenure, Mecham reportedly believed he was divinely ordained to hold office. Staff members recalled instances where Mecham expressed confidence that his authority came from a higher power, dismissing opposition as inconsequential. This perception fueled criticism of his leadership style, which detractors described as arrogant and detached. His belief in a divine mandate alienated many, reinforcing the view that he was out of touch with political realities and public sentiment. Number 10. Legacy of division and controversy. Even after leaving office, Mecham remained a divisive figure. Supporters hailed him as a principled conservative and a victim of political persecution, while detractors highlighted his racially insensitive remarks, financial scandals, and mismanagement. In his book Impeachment, The Arizona Conspiracy, Mecham argued that his removal was orchestrated by political adversaries. He spent his post-political life defending his record and advocating conservative causes. Until his death on February 21, 2008, Mecham continued to spark debate, leaving behind a legacy defined by controversy and unyielding conviction.